desde el punto de vista de los consumidores. Muchas gracias. Mi nombre es Hugh Bowman, soy de la Coalición Europea por Políticas de Drogas Justas y Eficaces.
Bien, en el caso de Uruguay, asegurar, nosotros no podemos asegurar nada. Lo que sí expresamos es la voluntad política que hemos tenido para llevar adelante esta reforma en la perspectiva filosófica de la CND. Para nosotros, el problema de ciertos productos de consumo que tienen poder psicoactivo, son las drogas, están asociadas a la mercantilización de las mismas. Si pensamos el uso del tabaco hace 500 años, cuando Occidente encuentra los pueblos de América, el tabaco era un problema de salud pública. El problema del tabaco es un problema de salud pública es que se mercantilizó. Sobre esta base, el diseño de la política del Uruguay apunta a desmercantilizar esta sustancia que es la marihuana y tratarla no como el mercado capitalista trata a las corbatas, a los zapatos, a los sacos, sino tratarla de una manera diferente. Filosóficamente, quizás comparta contigo que el problema no es la marihuana, el problema es el capitalismo. Pero bueno, tampoco hemos encontrado otro sistema que sea mucho mejor que este por ahora. Entonces, ¿cómo dentro de este sistema podemos desarrollar políticas que tengan aporte sustantivo a la mejora de la calidad de vida de los ciudadanos, de la población, de los usuarios de marihuana, pero también del conjunto de la población? No lo podemos asegurar, pero esta desmercantilización de la sustancia, para el caso de Uruguay, se basa en que el precio es fijado por el Estado, en que no existe competencia entre productores, no existe competencia entre quienes distribuyen, no existe competencia entre quienes venden. Eso tiene problemas de control, sin duda alguna, pero en el diseño que tenemos es una alternativa a los usuarios en el mercado negro, la ilegalidad, la violencia, la falta de derecho, o un mercado regulado con ciertas dificultades que asegura calidad, que asegura transparencia y que le da seguridad. Queda un campo enorme en relación al cual trabajar y para eso creo que todos quienes honestamente están trabajando por una modificación proactiva en materia de política del lugar, que es el campo del uso medicinal de la marihuana. También hay que demostrar que esos usos, en aquellos casos que sean usos paliativos, en aquellos casos que puedan tener efectos curativos que efectivamente en cuenta y hagan contraer a cierto tipo de enfermedades, hay que demostrarlo con la evidencia, con la ciencia, y regular esto es un aspecto bastante más complejo. Porque eso implica formas de experimentación que tienen que ser después validadas. En este sentido, nosotros hemos optado, a diferencia de otras experiencias, en regular primero los usos no médicos desde una perspectiva de derechos humanos y regular después los usos médicos, farmacéuticos o cosméticos, teniendo en cuenta el aporte que pueden hacer para paliar enfermedades o para curar enfermedades.
I will be very brief because I want to let other people have an opportunity to ask questions. With respect to the statement that should large companies take over the market, everything will be the same, I reject that assumption. It is very different to not be treated as a criminal. It is very different not to be arrested, not to be prosecuted. The quality of your cannabis is not as important as the quality of not having a criminal conviction. With respect to the market, though, this is going to be an iterative process. There will not be the day that the cannabis market will be perfect. As with tobacco, we will stumble, we will skin our knees, and we will have to pick ourselves up and do better. I will note, however, that we also have large companies that sell beer, and we have small companies that sell beer. There's a wide range in the market.
With regard to Colorado, obviously I can't speak for state governments, and in fact, when I do speak, oftentimes it's very different than what the representatives of our state government do say. But I can speak to what our campaign has done since the end of the last legislative session and during the last legislative session. Our campaign's top priorities, our number one regulatory legislative goal was to ask for the ability for production caps and a wide range of options for the state government to place caps on production to prevent the monopolization or to prevent oligopoly type system forming. That being said, it is a free market. There is nothing inside of the structure that would prevent large companies from being formed. But we started this, having many people allowed to come into the market and then giving mechanisms for the government to cap total production actually has created, much like, to follow the alcohol example, the craft beer market. And over the last decade or two, if you look at what is going on in the United States, the large manufacturers of beer are losing market share, are losing a lot of market share to the smaller craft brewers. And this is a craft. This is the producers, the cultivators of cannabis are and how they operate in Colorado, and certainly supporting that idea and having small production, I think, is where we're going. And from our perspective, every year we'll go back to the legislature, every year we'll go back to the regulators, and we'll push for protections from these types of things.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Few very simple questions. One, I think Colorado has emphasized that they need water as much as possible. Now, how do these states guarantee that now the new opening of the market remains within their boundaries and not doesn't spill over to the next states in the United States? This is an intriguing question to me, and I know that from one country to the other, the MPS are moving very fast and out of drug countries. So, are you having any guarantee or any safety margin or whatever? And how does the central government react to initiatives in the United States? Now, the second question is addressed to the gentleman from Uruguay. For what uses are you making this thing? For any use? What you, as a psychiatrist, am I right? We use marijuana to rifle? No. So this is not a medical. I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm sorry. But I am from medical school, so that is obviously my interest to see whether what uses are, because it is not really a drug. Someone said here it's not marijuana. Yes, it's not marijuana, but it is the people and the intent. For what are they using? What is going to be free or is free? My last comment to the gentleman criticizing WHO, I know WHO, I have been part of it sometimes in the past. No, you are not right. I'm sorry. WHO is not to look at marijuana. They have looked at it in a very serious way. In the 90s, marijuana, from the scientific point of view, they did a very serious evaluation and published in documents I haven't can share it with you. Volunteer a scheduled drug, they would need a serious move from the government, from member states, and then they have the obligation to do it. So, I can just suggest, if you wish to have seen this scheduled drug, you have to convince governments, sufficient number of governments, to make this move. This is in the conventions.
Muchas gracias por sus comentarios y sus preguntas. Podríamos tener su nombre y su institución.
Alan Secretary from Hungary Medical School, professor.
Gracias. Sí.
I'll be brief answering your first question. It's a critical question. How do we prevent or limit, is probably a better way of describing it, how do we limit the cannabis that's cultivated and sold in Colorado from leaving the state? I don't think we're going to have much luck preventing it. Obviously, if we can't prevent all sorts of substances from coming across international borders, we're certainly not going to stop anything from leaving the borders of Colorado, particularly when the surrounding states, the price of the product is substantially more valuable than it is in the state. Well, there's two types of things we have to be concerned about. The first is the regulated system. Are they using the regulated system? Is someone using that system to cultivate large amounts of marijuana and then transfer it out of state? That's one problem. The second problem is just, what about if I come over from the state of Kansas, or I come down from the state of Wyoming? Wyoming, by the way, is where you go to buy all your fireworks in Colorado, because they're completely illegal. So, it's a funny thing that there's a cartoon about that, how we'll stop the fireworks, stop the cannabis. But the way that you do it is you make it so that you have very pragmatic things, limitations on purchasing if you're an out-of-state person, so that way they can only, they take a small amount, or they have to go to a lot of stores. I know it sounds silly, but it's a pragmatic solution. The other is to have very robust regulation. We have a seed-to-sale tracking system that uses RFID and everything else. We have a very robust regulatory system. And the last thing is you make the price more expensive. You do that by raising the regulatory bar in terms of putting substantial testing requirements, which will be the most robust testing on cannabis. Well, maybe Washington State will be more. We added and fought for, as advocates, a high tax. If the price of cannabis in Colorado, right now the price of cannabis in Colorado at a regulated store is more expensive than it is on the unregulated market in other states. So long as that is happening, I don't see someone coming to lose money. We just got to keep raising the bar.
In Washington, the provisions that are in the law to try to prevent diversion are that the regulatory agency has capped the amount of cannabis that can be produced to 2 million square feet of canopy area within the state. You also have the double-sided coin of, on the one hand, if you have a license and you are able to legally produce and sell cannabis within the state of Washington, you risk losing that license, and you also risk being arrested and charged with felonies if you do divert it outside the state. But I think more importantly, the flip side of that coin is that if you give most human beings the opportunity to behave in a legal fashion, they will do so. And under cannabis prohibition, we have not made that opportunity available to people before. The final comment that I would have to say is, what if cannabis from these legally quality-controlled states does get diverted to other states? What's actually the harm? Because what that cannabis is doing is displacing the cannabis that is already being purchased there from illegal sources.
Yeah, and the question of WHO, indeed, in the early 90s, there has been a very interesting study made. It was also a very polemical study, and it was at the same time that the WHO also did a study on cocaine and the coca leaf, concluding that the coca leaf had only therapeutical positive uses and that they had found no negative effects. The cannabis report was a serious research, but also some of the conclusions were not politically very acceptable. So what happened after this period of studies within the substance abuse department of the WHO, basically the whole department was dismantled. What the expert committee has done, of course, and that's now on the agenda again, this CND, is looking at the dronabinol, the THC, the therapeutical use of THC. And we will see tomorrow in the vote, because the WHO has already 3 times recommended to deschedule it to a schedule of less control. Again, tomorrow, what I've been hearing, I fear that, again, for political reasons, it will not make the 2/3 vote that it requires. Interesting is that, of course, because that's the story I gave was about the formal recommendation of the expert committee that is required for the schedule, which in the case of cannabis has never happened. But the interesting thing is that in the next meeting of the expert committee, in fact, it is coming to the agenda. Unfortunately, not yet as a full critical review, but there will be a discussion paper on how to continue within the expert committee with a review of cannabis and a recommendation of cannabis scheduling in the system of innovation.
Muchas gracias.
My name is Thomas Kichman, I'm from UNOXC, and I have actually the same question to the 2 American states and Uruguay. One of the arguments put forward has been to take out money from the illegal sector for the legalization of cannabis. So in that sense, I would be interested, do you have studies to what is the cannabis market and as compared to the total drug market? So how much money out of the total drug money are you taking out by legalizing cannabis?
Bueno, es una pequeña referencia a la pregunta anterior que está ligada a esta pregunta. El 98% de la marihuana que se consume en Uruguay no es producida en Uruguay. Quiere decir que el modelo vigente de los últimos 60 años no ha logrado evitar que algunos países, como el caso nuestro, nos veamos en una situación en la que toda la producción prácticamente viene de afuera. Uruguay